Some of you have been, you maybe were in the Bill of Rights Institute session when we did this one before, but today we have Chris Jansen with us. And I have a little bit of an introduction for Chris. And do you go by Christopher or Chris? Just to make sure.
Chris is fine.
Okay. And he's on there. Of course, he's on staff there, but he is and tell me if any of this has changed, but manager outreach and communications.
That's it.
And before joining BRI, he was full-time in February of 2017. He worked for 17 years in sales and marketing for the Washington Post newspaper and education program, which I love that program. He has also done marketing, public relations, and fundraising for several small theater companies in Washington, D.C., has worked as an education aide and consultant for the Smithsonian Institution's National Portrait Gallery. I love that as well. And has written curriculum for the U.S. Fund for UNICEF's Teach UNICEF program, which I think we need to learn more about, but not today, probably. Chris has a BA in history and drama from Thomas More. Oh, great. In his native Kentucky. That's what I was looking forward to telling you all.
Yeah.
And also a master's in theater history, literature, and criticism from Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. So what a wonderful collection of adventures you had, it sounds like, Chris. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. And to all of you who, again, on this beautiful Wednesday have chosen to spend an hour with us talking about resources. And I think we're going to dig in really deeply into the website today to find some more resources for you in your classroom. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you. If you need me, just let me know.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for that introduction. Yeah, I'm especially excited to be with all of you today because I grew up in Kentucky. And yeah, I'm really appreciative of your time today. As Jackie said, I've worked for the Bill of Rights Institute for a little over 6 years now. I've worn a variety of hats here, some in marketing, some in communications, but I have done school programs with the Washington Post and with the Smithsonian, and occasionally our programs team calls on me to pinch hit and do some professional development, and I always welcome that opportunity. So I'm just going to dive right in. However, before I get started, I like to know, who's in the group. Are most of you, what grade levels do you teach? Or is it K? How many of you teach K-5? Just okay. All right. So kind of okay. All right. So it looks like a lot of middle school. Okay. So there's a lot of variety, but a lot of elementary. So that's very helpful in terms of what I want to kind of focus on when I go through our resources. So a little bit about the Bill of Rights Institute, and I'm going to share my screen here. I do have a short PowerPoint. We've been around since 1999, so almost 24 years. We started out as a publishing house, publishing actual books, curriculum books. And about, I want to say 8 or 10 years ago, we decided to digitize all of our resources, make them free. So we're a nonprofit. We're completely donor supported. We have, I think, over 3,000 individual donors now and about 30 to 40 foundations who support us. Because of that, all of our materials and resources, everything I'm showing you today is free. I always forget to say that, and that's like one of the most important parts. It's one of the most important parts. So there's no cost involved to any of our resources, and our professional development is also free. When we do in-person professional development, we have recently started asking teachers to put down a $10 deposit when they sign up, which is fully refundable once you attend. And if you can't attend and let us know within 48 hours, we give that back. We've had a lot of attrition recently, so we just started doing that. But other than that, everything that we offer is free. So this is what we strive to do. The short elevator speech is that we teach civics, and the way we do that is we provide compelling learning experiences and hopefully engaging original content that foster the principles and virtues of American liberty and opportunity. So what principles and virtues are we talking about? This is the best way to sort of sign up to sort of summarize our design concept. Everything that we produce is based on constitutional principles and civic virtues. So almost every one of the lessons and activities that I'm going to share with you today, we trace back to one or more of the things you see here. And we'll come back to this a little bit later. But that's, if I were to characterize what's unique about our resources, perhaps unique, hopefully unique from maybe some others, is this framework that we strive to adhere to. So our new vision and mission statement: Bill of Rights Institute seeks an America where we more perfectly realize the promise of liberty and equality expressed in the Declaration of Independence. This calls for civic action and helps students examine the story of our country and exercise the skills of citizenship. We teach civics by equipping students and teachers to live the ideals of a free and just society. And everything that we produce is vetted by scholars and by classroom educators. So when we're rolling out a new resource like we're about to do here in a few weeks with our Slavery and the Founding, it goes through a very rigorous process where we have a panel of scholars that review everything for accuracy, and a group of teachers who pilot test it in their classroom, so that we know that what we're providing you has passed that classroom test. We're committed to telling the whole history, including when we have lived up to our ideals and when we've fallen short. And everything that we do is based on moral and civic virtues, and character education is built into many of our lessons. And we encourage civility and mutual respect. So a lot of our newer materials, especially the AP US History textbook that we just put out in 2020, has a point counterpoint unit where for every period of US history that it goes through, we have scholars take a question from history, a controversial question from history. So the example I always use is the Constitution a pro-slavery document? There's a lot of scholarly debate around that. So we have two scholars have written essays on that question, and then the students examine their arguments, examine the evidence, and come up with their own belief system around that. So that's one of the many ways that we try to foster civility and civil discourse. I really see us as a teacher service organization. We've built up a community of nearly 70,000 educators who are in our network, who are using one or more of our resources. Some of you may receive some of our emails. I've already talked about professional development. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. We also hire teachers to write curriculum, to serve on our teacher advisory council, and to do pilot testing, as I already mentioned. So over the past 24 years, we've built up a library of over 4,000 resources, including videos, DBQs, primary sources, and we'll be looking at a few of those today. All of our professional development, we strive to look at new teaching strategies. So we focus on pedagogy as well as content. We encourage the sharing of ideas with one another. And we want to deepen our own knowledge as well as those of all the teachers who are present at the PD. And this is just our design inputs, which I've already talked about. We've got a full-time learning design person on staff. So everything that we produce now, the design of it is very much taken into account. So we hope that you'll connect with us, and these are some of the ways that you can do so. I'll just pause there really quickly to see if there's any questions in the chat, or if anybody has a question that they want to
You all feel free to unmute or to put
Yeah.
the questions
Yeah,
in the
feel free to
box.
chime in. I should have said that I want to, make this very conversational, and if you have comments or questions or anything that maybe that you've used or something similar that you've modified, please feel free to drop that in the chat. So we're going to go straight to the website. So our website was just revamped in 2020, right in time for when the whole world shut down. So when you go to the site, there are no paywalls. You can see any of the resources without having to create a login. However, one of the things that I want to talk about today are the advantages of creating a login. For one thing, the answer keys are only available to you if you sign up for an educator account. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in to my own account. This is my personal email, and it remembers you once you sign in and create an account. And you can see here that I'm logged in. Once I'm logged in, I can go to my profile and I can see what badging I've completed. I can look at my library and see things that I've added to my library, and you can create your own unique playlists. So because we have so many resources, if you stumble across something that fits in with a unit you're doing, in a few weeks on colonial America or on Benjamin Franklin, then you can go to your library and you can pull that. So I think a really good place to start is to just go straight to our resources. So this is like a digital version of walking into your local public library. You've got the featured resources up front, and then all of the resources divided out by type. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this resource because it's one of our oldest and it's just been revamped, and modifications, scaffolded guides have been added for ESL classrooms and lower level learners. So most of our material is designed for 6th through 12th grade. However, a lot of these resources, in being an American, have been scaffolded, and I'll highlight some of those things here in a minute. But with being an American, this is a great resource for teaching the fundamentals of U.S. history. So I believe 5th grade in Kentucky is when you begin to cover U.S. history. Am I correct there? Is it still 5th grade?
Dee said yes. I was going to say yes, but I'm going to let the experts speak to that.
Yeah, no worries. So the lessons in this are covered the founding documents and the civic virtues that we talked about earlier. So I just want to pull an example. From this resource, American Heroes Past and Present. So when you go into the resource, you can see the guiding question, the objectives, the materials that are supplied here, some background information, a warm-up activity, and then the activities themselves. So I love this lesson because it contains character cards, which have been updated recently. So what you can do is print these out or share them digitally and have the students select one or two. So I'm going to focus here on Henry Clay, a fellow Kentuckian. And as you can see, this is a very short narrative of the person's life. So this can easily be adapted to, to a lower grade level. And then once the students read each of their characters, they can go in to our founding principles and civic virtues. This handout is also on our website, and try to select which of these virtues or vices and which constitutional principle that person's life and work characterizes. And we've tried in the revamp to make this a little bit more diverse. It used to be mostly the founding fathers, the powdered wig, 18th century powdered wig guys, and there's a lot more diversity, I think, in this one. But this is exactly the kind of resource that we get feedback on from teachers that we're constantly updating and revamping. So anything that you see here today that we talk about, that that you see a gap, or you see something that that you think would be presented in a better way for the grade level that you teach, we absolutely welcome that feedback. So that's being an American, and that's kind of one of our most popular resources. One other that I want to show you that was just released in 2021 is called The Plainest Demands of Justice, Documents for Dialogue on the African American Experience. This resource is divided into 7 lessons, and it starts with the founding era and goes all the way through to the early 21st century. I'm really proud of the way this resource came together. The touchstone document for the entire resource is the Declaration of Independence. So regardless of what era you're covering, we invite the students and encourage them to go back, and when they're looking at one of the over 96 primary resources in this curriculum, to connect it to the ideas of liberty and equality that are put forth in the Declaration of Independence. So one of my favorites in this resource is, let's see if I can find Belinda Sutton. So this is a resource that I had not been familiar with before. This is a petition of an enslaved woman who was enslaved by the royal household, which was a large slaveholding family in Massachusetts in the late 18th century. And during the Revolution, they were exiled from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, leaving their enslaved, those who they had enslaved, leaving their legal status sort of up in the air. So this woman was an enslaved woman. She went to the Commonwealth and petitioned for back wages. I love it because it's for a number of reasons. One, it's one of the few narratives from an African-American woman from this period that we have. What's interesting about it is that she presented this petition to the Commonwealth as a first person narrative of her life and her experience. And she goes into vivid detail about the Middle Passage and what that was like as an 11-year-old girl being kidnapped and taken across to this strange new world. So I feel like students can relate to that experience, can imagine what that would be like as a child to go through that. She goes into detail, but in the original document, if you read the background here, and we always have the source link, in the spot where she would have signed her name, there's an X. And what that tells us as historians is that the person was illiterate, which of course was, not uncommon for an enslaved woman at the time. But there was a very vibrant and active, free African-American community in Massachusetts at this time. So what likely happened was that someone from that community had transcribed her story for her. She had to go back, I think, at least 7 times. She was granted the back wages, but then she had to repetition 7 times. So again, when we're looking at this document with students, we invite them to imagine her experience, and again, to look at the paradox in her status as a slave. So the italicized section of this says, though she was a free moral agent accountable for her own actions, yet she never had a moment at her own disposal. So what is the founding principle that's at play here when we look at if you look at the founding principles, in particular the natural rights, what is she advocating for? Anyone? Just drop it in the comments or speak up. So what's she petitioning for? Equality, excellent. And justice, right? People should be able to reap the rewards of their work, right? So those are natural rights. What I love about this is, so 1783, we're still looking at the Articles of Confederation. The Constitution hasn't even been adopted yet. And yet here we have a woman whose social and legal status is uncertain, petitioning the government for a redress of grievances, right? The First Amendment, which has not even been, 1791, so almost 10, years before that was even established. And again, everything comes back to founding principles. And what about civic virtues? What civic virtues do you see in Belinda Sutton? Again, just drop what you think in the chat. Absolutely, definitely courage. A person of her social and legal status at that time, stepping forward. Respect. Yep, she's definitely demanding respect, or yeah. So I introduced that just as a way of showing you the way that we design all of our materials and lessons. So also in the Educator Hub, you can browse through all of the primary sources that we have. And when you pull up one of these, you'll see on the right that you have the option of downloading it. You can save it to your library. You can add it to your LMS, which creates a link, a unique link. You can add it to your own playlist. Okay, so I'd have to create a new one. I started creating a playlist of resources on the Reconstruction era. And you can also share it with a colleague or with your students. Also, when you pull up an individual lesson, like one of these from Being an American, that's not what I wanted to show you. Hold on just a second, sorry. Let's do it this way. So if I want to find an activity on the US Constitution, let's go back to Plaintiffs' Demands of Justice. No, it's not pulling up what I wanted to, so I'll come back to that. Sorry. So we'll go back to the Educator Hub. It tells you in the upper left-hand corner whether this is a lesson or an activity. And then, and this is what I wanted to show you. So on the side, it will tell you the duration of this, what standards are addressed, the founding principle, the topic, and the virtues. For each activity. And then we also have digital badging available. So online learning, where you can receive a badge. And these are the ones that we currently will be offering again in the fall. So these are self-paced and self-guided. And at the end, you receive a digital badge for completing that course on your own schedule.
So, Chris, I'm sorry
go
to
ahead.
interrupt. You said those were going to be re-offered in the fall, but do you have to wait till a certain time to start, or can they do things this summer?
Yeah, we should be announcing them over the summer. I don't think that we're going to be ready to start this summer. But if you sign up, we will let you know as soon as our next cohort group opens up. I expect it to be sometime this summer, but I don't have an exact date on that yet. So the Bill of Rights Institute also has programs for your students. If you have 7th through 12th grade students who are working on a service learning project, or if they're involved in scouting, 4-H, Future Business Leaders of America, any other organization that they're creating a service learning project for, whether it's part of the curriculum or it's an extracurricular activity, they can submit their project to the My Impact Challenge contest. Last year was our inaugural year after piloting this for a couple of years. We fully launched it and we awarded a total of $40,000 to students from all across the country for their projects. The deadline for this year's contest is May 21st. So the contest launches on September 11th every year, which is a National Day of Service, and it runs throughout the school year. And if they're already doing a project of some kind, part of the application process is they just have to submit an essay and they have to tell us how their project ties into a constitutional principle, at least one constitutional principle, and at least one civic virtue. And then they have to lay out their project plan and then submit a media to go along with it. So photographs or videos that show how their project has made a difference in their community. There's also a whole curriculum built out around this. The curriculum looks at service as 3 different pillars of civil society. One way of serving your community is to work with a nonprofit like your church or Salvation Army or your local Red Cross. You could also create your own business. So entrepreneurship is the second pillar. And then the third pillar is government, working with a local government or state or national government even to create a project. One of the winners last year was a group of young ladies who petitioned their local government and worked with local businesses to bring a farmer's market into their community. They identified a need where there was a lack of healthy food options for their small town, and demonstrated that need to the local council, and they were spearheading actually starting a farmer's market in their community. The winning student worked with the local Red Cross in his community of Long Beach, California, and put together disaster relief packages for people in the community impacted by natural disasters. And then the other program for students that I'd love to share with you is called Think the Vote. Think the Vote was launched as its own website in 2016 as a place where students can go to get information about the candidates and the issues of the 2016 presidential race. It really took off, and the site was very popular. And after the election was over, we were trying to think of a way to keep it going in non-election years. And so we built out the debate section of the page and made it a bi-weekly platform where students can go and cast a vote on a current events topic. So what we do is we invite students to comment. This one is the most recent. We invite students to submit a short writing prompt, a writing activity on this question, pro or con, and then we filter them out. Of course, we get a lot of adults who try to jump in there. So it's not a live site, it's curated by our staff. And the top comments from each side of the debate are then posted on the website. So if you look at this one, and it's always interesting to me, oftentimes it's very 50-50, but this is obviously students feel very strongly about banning TikTok. But what we do is we post their comments, and we also send a gift card and swag to the students on both sides of the question who make the strongest case for their position, and to their teacher as well. And we do that every 2 weeks, and then at the end of the school year, so in a few weeks here, we'll award $1,000 to the top student for that year. And this is open to 13 to 18-year-olds. Any other questions? I've been talking for a while here. I want to pause and see if anyone has any questions or comments on anything we've looked at so far.
You all don't have to
So
be
so that's Think the Vote. In addition, both for students and teachers, we have a very robust YouTube channel. In particular, our homework help series takes either a Supreme Court case or just a constitutional amendment or principle like this and tries to break it down in very short 3 to 5 minute explainers, which if you're trying to introduce either it's a Supreme Court case or a period from US history. And this is a good example of how you can filter on the side. So if you look at our homework help series, you can say, well, I just want to see only the ones that are related to civil liberties. And that should be more than, there should be more than one there, but or only those that relate to the Bill of Rights, or only the videos that relate to the Civil War. And these are just homework help videos. We have, in addition to the homework help videos, a series that we produce called Scholar Talks that are really teacher focused. So every week we launch a new one and we just sit down. These are longer videos. If you're looking for background on any of these issues, we just sit down and interview a scholar for about 20, 25 minutes on the topic. So those are our Scholar Talk videos. We also have a really fun series that Mary Patterson on our staff is she's a former high school history teacher, looks at pieces of art from throughout history. This is meant to be student facing, but it really is student or teacher. You could show to your class. I love that the way that she uses works of art, photography, sculpture, whatever, visual art to zone in on a specific period in US history. This is one of her recent ones on this portrait of Abraham Lincoln that just recently went on display at the National Portrait Gallery at Stomping Grounds. It's very interesting. We also have a series of videos, recordings of webinars that we did for AP prep for the AP US History exam and the AP government exams. So those are also available from the last, I think, 3 years. Yeah, here they are. So this is the AP prep series from 2018. And there's a host and a teacher that did go through all the different periods. I know many of you don't teach AP, but the last thing that I want to highlight as far as our curriculum is concerned today is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which I mentioned briefly earlier. So this was designed because we saw a need for an AP US history textbook that didn't cost hundreds of dollars and yet was really good quality. So this is the result of that effort. It covers all of the units from AP US history, but it can be used by any US history instructor. And you may find things within the units that you can, again, pick out and plug and play, add to your playlist. There are lessons, there are activities. So earlier I talked about the point counterpoint. This is a great example of that, one of the first ones. How do we look at Columbus? How should he be remembered? There's scholarly debate on that. So you've got 2 claims from 2 different scholars, and then students are invited to examine the evidence for each claim. So it's not really laid out like a traditional textbook that you can browse through. All of our material are designed specifically to be very plug and play. Realizing that, you know, most teachers are not going to adopt this entire textbook as their resource, but you are likely to find one activity or one lesson or one counterpoint that fits in with your with your lesson plan. And the one thing I want to note, since we're on this page, is that you'll see I'm logged into my account. That's the only way that I can see answer keys. So the answer keys only show up for you if you create and log into an educator account. So it's approved by the College Board. It's the only free resource for teaching AP US history that's approved by the College Board. So that was the monumental effort. So we're really proud of the way that turned out. But again, all of our materials, we're constantly seeking input, from teachers for how we can improve them and update them. And this resource was launched in 2020, and that's already 3 years, which is crazy to me. But there are already things that teachers have called, to our attention, gaps that we need to go back and look at and fill. So I know I've covered a lot, and I know that a lot of this is, for many of you who teach lower grade levels, may not be useful. However, we are excited because we got a grant to produce our first K-5 curricular resource, which is being worked on now, and we expect that to launch later this year. So when you go in and if you do go in and decide to create an educator account, there are three newsletter options, actually. Student newsletter, which you can sign up for to see what what we're sending students as well. A lot of teachers do that. An educator newsletter that's sort of a digest of what new releases and that sort of thing, and then an e-lesson that we do. The educator newsletter and the e-lesson come out every other week to kind of keep you up to date on what's new. So please, if you haven't already, please sign up for the newsletter so that we can let you know as that begins to roll out. And anything that I've gone over today that you have feedback on, things that you'd like to see in terms of videos that we're that we produce, you can go to our YouTube channel and actually subscribe. And that way you'll get notified when we release a new video. And again, if you see something in here that you'd like for us to cover, we definitely would love to hear from you. So I'll go ahead and
I may have missed the beginning of it, but could you tell me how to sign up for the newsletter?
So when you go to, so I'm going to sign out. Actually, let me do it this way. When you go to sign in or create an account, it will give you, it'll ask for your information, all this basic information, and then you'll have to create your create your account as a teacher account, and then you can sign up for one of these newsletters. So I'm going to drop this in the chat, but you can also just search newsletter sign up like I just did. Any other questions?
Yeah, well, you were showing those different choices you had, and you said sign up for your teacher account. What if you are the chairperson of whatever, one of those other choices? Does it matter?
No, for all intents and purposes, it doesn't. The thing that's most important is that to get access to answer keys, you'll have to identify yourself as a teacher.
Gotcha.
Let me look at the categories.
So if you were an administrator, you wouldn't.
I think it will let you. Yeah, it does. So it does let you select more than one choice.
So just make sure you choose teacher amongst those.
Yeah, and then these are obviously optional. You don't have to sign up for if you get too many emails already and you don't want another email from someone. These again, this one comes out every other week. So this is an e-lesson week. So we're about to drop an e-lesson tomorrow. Next Tuesday, we do the educator newsletter. The student newsletter goes out every Monday, and it announces whatever the Think the Vote debate topic is for that 2-week period. Any other questions? A lot of times, April is financial literacy month, so this is why we're highlighting this. So last year, or I think in late 2021, we did a partnership with a Hoover Institution out of Stanford University. So if any of you teach economics, this is the result of that partnership. It's called Building Blocks of Progress. Any other questions? Looks like we've got about 10 or 15 minutes left.
You all, I meant to grab the evaluation link. Let me do that. But while I'm doing that, add any questions you might have.
I know you showed us where the AP resources are. Could you show us a little bit more about what they have to offer there? And then like for the AP government, I can't remember how many years ago it was. I feel like, which time goes by so quick, I feel like it was more recent than, or it was probably further back than what it was, that they revamped the test. Is it up to date with the newest standards they have for AP?
So we don't yet have an AP government focused resource, but that's something that's in the works right now. So basically, it's going to be the GoPo version of this, and it will be applying for College Board approval for that, so you can be certain that it will be aligned with the standards. Right now, as far as AP alignment is concerned, this is the only resource we have that aligns with AP US history. Again, as we roll that out, we'll be looking for pilot testers and for feedback on that. So yeah, please connect with us because we want to essentially create the AP Gov equivalent of this resource.
I did put the evaluation link in the chat box, and I also encourage you to, Chris, I don't know if you've ever seen their Twitter presence, but they are big on Twitter, and I'm sure they will be tagging the Institute as well. But I just want to remind you all, it's always good to tweet early and often.
Absolutely. Connect with us on Twitter. You can follow, where we're going. So I will point out that this events calendar has not yet been updated with the fall because we're still figuring that out, ironing that out. But if you would like us to come to your neck of the woods, your district or your school, you can request professional development, and we can work with you to try to make that happen. So there is a page where you can do that. In person is a little more difficult for obvious reasons, but we certainly can do a tailored presentation like this for if you work, if you're the coordinator at a school with your staff or with your teachers in your district.
And you may have said this, I'm sorry if I missed it, but I'm sure if people have questions or, hey, I need a little more help, or hey, I had this idea, but I don't see it here, who can they reach out to?
I just put my email in the
Great.
chat, but there's also Um, on our statement of academic integrity, this just tells you that we're committed to balance in all of our materials, but also there's a feedback page. So if you have specific feedback on a resource, this is I can put this link in here. And this is the place where you can do that, and it will go to someone on our content team. All right. Well, if there are no other questions.